I bought glue and swapped my husband's hidden lube. Then I got a terrifying call from the firefighters. She thought it would be nothing more than a harmless prank, a moment of petty revenge she would laugh about later with her friends over wine. After discovering her husband's hidden stash tucked away in the back of his gym bag, evidence of infidelity she'd suspected for months finally confirmed, she quietly replaced the bottle of personal lubricant with clear craft glue purchased specifically for this purpose, convinced he would never notice the switch until it was too late. It seemed like poetic justice, a way to humiliate the man who'd been humiliating her with his affair. But the next morning, everything changed in a way she never could have anticipated. Her phone rang at 7:30 a.m. with an unknown local number, and when she answered, still groggy from sleep, a firefighter was on the line, breathless, confused, clearly uncomfortable, and asking her to come immediately to an address she didn't recognize. His voice trembled with barely suppressed panic as he explained there had been an incident involving her husband Trevor in a cheap motel room on the edge of town. The firefighter refused to give specific details over the phone, saying only that it was a medical emergency requiring her presence as next of kin, but the tone of his voice said enough. Whatever had happened in that motel room, it was bad. Really bad. Possibly medical emergency requiring firefighters and paramedics level bad. As she stared at her ringing phone afterward, heart pounding violently in her chest, hands shaking, she realized with dawning horror that her little act of revenge had turned into something much bigger, much stranger, and potentially much more serious than she ever intended. What she'd meant as a humiliating prank to teach her cheating husband a lesson had apparently turned into an actual emergency situation requiring first responders, and she had no idea what she was about to walk into. Before I tell you what happened in that motel room and the absolutely insane consequences of swapping lube with glue, you need to subscribe to this channel immediately. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell, because this story is going to take you on the wildest, most unexpected journey you can imagine. I share real stories about revenge, relationships gone wrong, and the consequences of decisions made in anger every single week, and this one is absolutely unbelievable. Smash that like button right this second, because your engagement helps these wild stories reach people who need to hear them. People who need to know that revenge doesn't always go according to plan. Drop a comment telling me, have you ever done something for revenge that backfired spectacularly? This is a true story that happened 8 months ago, and I promise you that what you're imagining happened in that motel room is probably not quite right. The truth is even more bizarre and chaotic than you're predicting. Stay with me until the very end because this story takes turns you absolutely will not see coming. My name is Melissa. I'm 38 years old, and 8 months ago, I discovered my husband Trevor was having an affair, decided to get revenge through what I thought was a harmless prank, and ended up creating a situation so ridiculous and medically complicated that it required firefighters, paramedics, emergency room doctors, and eventually divorce attorneys. To understand how we got to that point, you need to understand the relationship and what led to my decision to swap his lube with glue. If you're already hooked on this wild story, hit that like button right now and comment glue prank, because what happens next is absolutely insane. Trevor and I had been married for 12 years. We met in our mid-20s, married young, had what seemed like a decent marriage for the first several years. No children. We'd decided early on that we didn't want kids, which we both agreed on. Trevor worked in sales, traveled occasionally for work, had a fairly normal career. I worked in marketing for a local company. We had a comfortable suburban life. Nothing extraordinary, but stable. But about 2 years ago, things started changing. Trevor became distant, secretive with his phone, started working late more frequently. Classic signs of an affair that I initially tried to dismiss because I didn't want to believe my husband would cheat. Then I started finding evidence. Receipts from restaurants we'd never been to together. Credit card charges from hotels in our own city when he claimed to be working late at the office. Strange text message notifications that he'd quickly dismiss. Perfume smell on his shirts that wasn't my perfume. 6 months ago, I finally confirmed the affair when I found explicit text messages on his phone while he was in the shower. Messages between Trevor and a woman named Amber from his office. They'd been seeing each other for over a year. The messages were graphic. detailing their sexual encounters in various locations, including hotels, her apartment, and apparently once in Trevor's car in a parking garage. I was devastated, furious, humiliated, but I didn't confront him immediately. Instead, I started planning. Subscribe right now because Melissa's revenge plan and its completely unexpected consequences are absolutely wild. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I want to be honest about my thought process at the time. I was angry and hurt and wanted Trevor to feel humiliated the way I felt humiliated. I wanted some form of revenge that would embarrass him without crossing into illegal territory. I considered exposing the affair to his boss, sending the text messages to Amber's husband. Yes, she was married too, but those options seemed too nuclear and would hurt innocent people. Then I found Trevor's emergency kit hidden in his gym bag. He clearly kept it there so I wouldn't discover it at home. Inside was a bottle of personal lubricant, condoms, breath mints, cologne, everything he needed for his affair activities. And that's when I got the idea for the prank. I would swap the lubricant with clear craft glue. The bottles looked similar enough that he wouldn't notice immediately. He'd grab his hidden stash for one of his encounters with Amber, and things would get awkward and uncomfortable when the lube didn't work as expected. He'd be humiliated, Amber would probably be annoyed, and I'd get a small bit of satisfaction knowing I'd disrupted their affair activities. It seemed harmless in my mind. Uncomfortable and embarrassing for them, yes, but not dangerous. I didn't think through the actual physical consequences of what glue would do in that situation. I just wanted to ruin one of their encounters and make Trevor feel stupid. So I went to a craft store, bought a bottle of clear craft glue that was similar in size and consistency to the lubricant, carefully emptied Trevor's lube bottle and replaced it with glue, made sure the bottle looked undisturbed, and put it back exactly where I'd found it in his gym bag. Then I waited. Trevor had a late work meeting scheduled for the following Thursday. I knew that was code for meeting Amber. Sure enough, Thursday evening he left with his gym bag, claiming he'd work out after his meeting and be home late. I almost felt gleeful knowing what was about to happen, almost felt justified in my petty revenge. Leave a comment saying bad idea if you're already seeing how this prank could go terribly wrong. The next morning, Friday, my phone rang at 7:30 a.m. I was still in bed. I'd taken the day off work to deal with some personal errands. The caller ID showed an unknown local number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Melissa Henderson?" a male voice asked, sounding stressed and uncomfortable. "Yes, who is this?" "Ma'am, this is firefighter Rodriguez with the county fire department. I'm calling because your husband, Trevor Henderson, has been involved in an incident requiring emergency medical attention. We need you to come to Memorial Hospital immediately." My heart stopped. Whatever I'd been expecting to happen with my glue prank, this wasn't it. What happened? Is he okay? What kind of incident? "Ma'am, I can't give specific details over the phone, but he's stable and conscious. However, the situation is unusual. The paramedics and ER doctors need to speak with you in person. Can you come to Memorial Hospital right away?" The firefighter's tone was strange, uncomfortable, almost embarrassed, like he didn't quite know how to explain what had happened. I threw on clothes and drove to the hospital in a panic, my mind racing through horrible scenarios. Had Trevor had a heart attack during sex with Amber? Had something gone catastrophically wrong with my prank? Had I accidentally caused serious injury to my husband despite my intention of just embarrassing him? When I arrived at the emergency room and identified myself, a nurse led me to a private consultation room. A doctor came in looking exhausted and bemused. "Mrs. Henderson, your husband is going to be fine physically, but I need to ask you some questions about the incident that brought him here." "What happened?" I demanded. "Why were firefighters involved?" Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because what the doctor tells Melissa about the motel room incident is absolutely unbelievable. The doctor took a deep breath, clearly trying to figure out how to explain. "Your husband was found in a motel room this morning in a situation that required emergency services. He and another individual, a woman named Amber Collins, were apparently engaged in intimate activity when they became stuck together, physically adhered in a way that required firefighter intervention to separate them." My brain couldn't process what I was hearing. "Stuck together? What do you mean stuck together?" "It appears," the doctor said carefully, that they used some kind of adhesive substance instead of personal lubricant. The substance created a strong bond that caused them to become physically attached in a very sensitive area. When they realized what was happening and tried to separate, it only made things worse. They were stuck for approximately 4 hours before they managed to call for help. The fire department had to respond because this was considered a technical rescue situation. I felt my face go completely white. 4 hours. They'd been stuck together for 4 hours because of my prank. What I'd thought would be a brief moment of awkward discomfort had turned into an hours-long emergency requiring first responders. The firefighters had to use special solvents to safely separate them. The doctor continued. Your husband has some minor skin irritation and abrasions in the affected area, but nothing permanent. He'll need to avoid any physical activity for at least a week while the skin heals. The woman with him has similar injuries. Where is he now? I asked, my voice barely working. He's in a treatment room being bandaged. Mrs. Henderson, I have to ask, do you have any idea how industrial-strength craft glue ended up in what your husband thought was a bottle of personal lubricant? The doctor was looking at me with an expression that suggested he'd already figured out what happened, that this wasn't the first time he'd seen a case of revenge gone wrong. I couldn't speak, couldn't admit what I'd done, couldn't face the reality that my stupid prank had caused an actual medical emergency requiring firefighters to physically separate my husband from his affair partner. Share this video immediately if you think Melissa's prank went way too far, because the consequences get even more complicated. The doctor continued when I didn't answer. The fire department is required to file a report on any technical rescue. They've already documented the situation. If this was some kind of deliberate act rather than an accident, there could be legal implications. Assault charges, potentially. I strongly suggest you speak with an attorney. Then he left me alone in that consultation room to process what I'd done. I'd meant to embarrass Trevor. Instead, I'd created a situation where my husband and his affair partner had been physically bonded together in the most intimate and humiliating way possible for 4 hours, where firefighters had been called to a motel room to separate 2 naked adults who'd been glued together, where my husband had suffered actual injuries requiring medical treatment. I sat there for 20 minutes trying to figure out what to do. Finally, a nurse came and said Trevor was asking for me. I followed her to a treatment room where Trevor was lying on a bed covered by a sheet, looking absolutely traumatized. When he saw me, his face went through several emotions: shame, anger, realization. You did this, he said. It wasn't a question. You switched the lube with glue. You knew about Amber and you did this as revenge. I couldn't deny it. Couldn't pretend I didn't know what he was talking about. Yes, I said quietly. I found out about your affair months ago. I found your hidden kit in your gym bag, and I wanted to embarrass you. I didn't realize it would be this bad. This bad? Trevor's voice rose. Melissa, I was glued to another person for 4 hours. Do you understand how horrific that was? We couldn't move, couldn't separate. Every attempt to pull apart just caused more pain. We had to call 911 while stuck together. Firefighters had to see us like that. Had to use chemical solvents on the most sensitive parts of my body. I have burns and abrasions that will take weeks to heal. And you did this on purpose. Subscribe and turn on notifications because the aftermath of this prank includes legal consequences Melissa never anticipated. You were cheating on me, I shot back. For over a year, with a married woman. You were lying to me every single day. So your response was to cause me physical harm? Trevor said. To create a situation that could have been even worse? What if the glue had caused permanent damage? What if we'd needed surgery to separate us? Did you think about any of that? I hadn't. I'd thought about embarrassment and awkwardness. I hadn't thought about hours of being stuck together. Hadn't thought about the need for emergency services. Hadn't thought about actual injuries. Hadn't thought about the legal implications of what I'd done. A hospital social worker came in then. Mr. and Mrs. Henderson, I need to inform you that the fire department's report will be forwarded to the police. This incident involved potential assault with a dangerous substance. The district attorney's office will review the case to determine if charges should be filed. My stomach dropped. Assault charges. I could be criminally charged for my prank. Could end up with a record. Could face legal consequences I'd never imagined. The social worker continued. Additionally, the other individual involved, Ms. Collins has indicated she may pursue a civil lawsuit for the injuries she sustained. You should both contact attorneys immediately. Trevor and I stared at each other across that hospital room. Our marriage was clearly over. That much was obvious. But now we were also facing potential criminal and civil legal battles over what I'd done. Over the next weeks, the situation got even more complicated. The story leaked somehow, probably through the firefighters or hospital staff, and became local news. Woman swaps husband's lube with glue, causes emergency response, was the headline. I became a minor local celebrity for all the wrong reasons. People I barely knew had opinions about what I'd done. Trevor moved out immediately and filed for divorce. Amber's husband also filed for divorce when he learned about the affair through the very public emergency room incident. The district attorney ultimately decided not to press criminal charges against me, determining that while my actions were reckless and caused harm, I hadn't intended serious injury, and Trevor's affair provided some context for my poor judgment. Leave a comment saying, "Legal consequences," if you think Melissa deserved to face charges for what she did. But Amber did file a civil lawsuit against me for her medical expenses, pain and suffering, and emotional distress. She claimed the incident caused her severe psychological trauma, being stuck to my husband for 4 hours, having firefighters see her in that state, the subsequent publicity. Her lawsuit sought $50,000 in damages. My attorney eventually negotiated a settlement where I paid $12,000 to make the case go away. Money I didn't really have but paid anyway to end the nightmare. The divorce was finalized 6 months after the incident. Trevor got to keep most of our assets since my prank had caused him and his affair partner physical harm. The judge didn't look favorably on what I'd done, even understanding the context of the affair. I lost my job too. My employer decided my public association with the glue incident reflected poorly on the company. They claimed they were downsizing my position, but everyone knew it was because I'd become locally infamous. 8 months later, I'm rebuilding my life. I moved to a different city where people don't know my story, found a new job in a different industry, started therapy to process the anger and hurt that led me to make such a catastrophically bad decision, and I've learned a painful lesson about revenge and consequences. What I did to Trevor was wrong. Yes, he cheated. Yes, he hurt and humiliated me. But my response was to cause him actual physical harm, even if that wasn't my conscious intention. I put him and Amber in a genuinely dangerous situation. They could have suffered worse injuries. The glue could have caused infections or permanent damage, and even though they were engaged in an affair, they didn't deserve that. Hit that like button if you believe revenge is never worth the consequences it brings. People ask if I regret what I did. The answer is complicated. I regret the execution, the fact that I didn't think through the actual consequences of swapping lube with glue. I regret causing physical harm and creating an emergency situation. I regret the legal and financial consequences I've faced. But do I regret wanting revenge on Trevor for his year-long affair? No. He destroyed our marriage through his choices. My mistake was letting my anger turn into a dangerous prank instead of just filing for divorce immediately. I've also thought a lot about Amber, the other woman. She made terrible choices by having an affair with a married man while being married herself. But she didn't deserve to be glued to my husband for 4 hours, didn't deserve the humiliation of having firefighters separate her from her affair partner, didn't deserve her own marriage to end through public scandal. My actions hurt multiple people beyond just my intended target. The story has taken on a life of its own online. It's been shared on Reddit, Twitter, Facebook. People have strong opinions. Some think Trevor got what he deserved. Some think I'm a monster who committed assault. Some think it's darkly hilarious. I've become a cautionary tale about revenge pranks gone wrong. I've also heard from other people who've done similar things, tampering with a cheating partner's belongings or setting up situations meant to embarrass them, and I try to warn them about how badly things can go wrong. What seems like a harmless prank in your imagination can become a serious legal problem in reality. Trevor has apparently moved on with his life in a different city as well. According to mutual friends, he's dating someone new. Amber reconciled with her husband after intensive marriage counseling. Apparently, the horror of the glue incident shocked her into realizing what she'd been risking. Subscribe to this channel if you believe people should learn from their mistakes, because Melissa's story is a powerful lesson about revenge. As for me, I'm learning to process betrayal and anger in healthier ways. Learning that revenge doesn't actually make you feel better. Learning that the satisfaction of hurting someone who hurt you is fleeting and comes with consequences you can't anticipate. Learning that the high road, while frustrating, is ultimately easier to live with. If I could go back and change what I did, I would. I would skip the prank entirely. Would have confronted Trevor about the affair immediately. Would have filed for divorce without trying to get revenge first. Would have protected myself legally and emotionally instead of letting anger drive my decisions. But I can't go back. I can only move forward with the knowledge that I made a terrible decision that caused real harm. That I let my hurt and anger turn me into someone who would deliberately cause pain to another person. That's something I have to live with and learn from. If this story has affected you, if it's made you think about revenge and consequences and the choices we make when we're hurt, do something important right now. Hit that like button so this story reaches more people who need to hear it. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications because I share true stories about relationships, mistakes, and lessons learned every week. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts about Melissa's decision and its consequences. Share this video because there are people out there considering revenge who need to understand how badly it can go wrong. I bought glue and swapped my husband's hidden lube, thinking it would be a harmless prank that would embarrass him during an affair encounter. Instead, I got a terrifying call from firefighters telling me my husband and his affair partner had been stuck together for 4 hours, requiring emergency response and medical treatment. My little act of revenge turned into assault charges, a civil lawsuit, divorce on unfavorable terms, and becoming locally infamous. I learned the hardest way possible that revenge is never worth what it costs. I'm Melissa. I'm 38, and 8 months ago I made the worst decision of my life. This is my story, and I'm sharing it so others don't make the same catastrophic mistake I did. The end.